walks on water? Who is this to split the sea? The one they call the Holy Father, the one who sent his son for me. They say he heals the broken hearted, they say he loves us all the same. He came to take us out of the darkness. Can someone please tell me his name? He's the great I am. He's the great I am. He's the great I am.
So Ryan, yeah, so tell us more about the prosperity gospel and its effect that it had on you and your family, especially after being married.
Yeah, wow. You know, at this point, I was going to the church that my wife had found. Her sister had gotten saved, and she told her sister to come because they kind of grew up in the church, so they had some knowledge of it. So when I went, I had gotten away the master done to me, and I showed, like I was stating earlier, I knew I stood with God, so I started taking it serious. But then, I got in the church and I didn't see the love. I saw a lot of cliques.
Yeah.
And, I'm coming in where I'm giving up everything, all my old friends. I'm giving up that old life to gain this family. And it was like I was fighting for approval. And it was kind of like, well, you don't really know a lot, so, just stick around. And, it was just like, just because I didn't have the knowledge that they had, I didn't really feel approved, So, that, in a way motivated me more. Because I'm just like, I'm going to really start studying and, give me a week and I'll come back and I'm going to be able to contribute to these, conversations. But it was big because I struggled with love growing up, where my mom never came to me and like hugged me and said, I love you. I didn't get that on a regular. Like, it had to be something crazy to happen for that to happen. So that, it was a strain to show that love.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to, even with my wife, it was like, sometimes I'm like no emotion. Like something big happened and I just can't show up because I just wasn't really raised that way. It was just like, we stayed in our rooms all the time. So to receive that love from God was like important from the people that claimed to be, following him. And after a while, when I really started reading the Bible, I noticed that I didn't really agree on a lot of the teachings. One of them was like tithing, They actually gave like a class on tithing and how you get your paycheck, you divide it all up, and that's what you're supposed to give. And, some churches believe in it, but when you actually look at the tithe, there was more than 10%. It was like 23%, and there's more tithes than one, And it just really put a burden on me because I felt like I was working for God's like approval, and what I was doing wasn't enough, and I wouldn't give more. I gave my 10%, that was it. So, it kind of puts you in that boat where you're not really giving from the heart. It's kind of like, I got paid to give my 10%, I'm good with God. When, like, I could have gave more, or I had something to give. I had something like a bill due or something, and I couldn't give that much, but I felt like if I didn't give that much, there was something wrong, and I was gonna, like, gotta be mad at me. So you put that pressure, and like, that's not true. That's why a lot of people don't like the church because of that. Because money sermons. It's a tough one to do the money sermons because of the way the church is. And they were doing a lot of questionable things where they were trying to bind the devil, and they thought they could bind the devil, and they had these, they called them watches, where they would go there from like 12 at night to like 3 in the morning and pray and kind of rebuke the devil and rebuke demons. And I had to really, and I couldn't go because I didn't take like a new believer class that they was offering. So it was like I was never able to go to these things, but it was really weird. And once I actually lined up to the Bible, I couldn't find anything that kind of show that they did this, the disciples did this, or this was actually biblical. So it was like, and I just had to keep. So I was like, you know what, I can't go. I'm kind of happy. I want my sleep anyway. So so I decided learning and I just kept reading. But I felt like I wasn't good enough because I couldn't go. So I was like pressuring them, when are we going to take this class? I want to take the class. I want to do this. At the time I had been at the church for a couple months. I wasn't baptized yet. I wanted to get baptized, but it was like, you have to wait. I had to wait till the summer to get baptized. And I had to wait until enough people came into the church where it was like necessary to do the class. So I'm sitting there waiting. So I had to like teach myself a lot. And, it was just really unbiblical. We met on like Friday nights. And we'll meet at 7. And we won't get up till like 2 in the morning. So, long nights where the pastor just talking. And it's like, my attention span, I can't even take it. And it was like, I had met with him one time. I'm like, you're trying to give us too much at once. And, and it was just like, stop once early. And the next time it was back to the thing. You know what I mean? So it was like, you're showing that you don't really care about your members, and you're not really listening. Their concerns are falling on deaf ears, and that was a big concern. And it's like once I dug deeper into their teachings, I saw the flaws. And one other one was healing. This was a big one. And they listened to T.D. Jakes. They took teachings from Benny Hinn, Joseph Prince, and Joseph Meyer, Kenneth Copeland, like these, and I'm just like, they are the focal point of what a false teacher is. Mm-hmm. Those are the groups, and when they was clinging to their teachings, and I was just like, that's bad. Where Benny Hinn is saying your healing goes hand in hand with your salvation. Where if you're not healed, you probably don't have the faith to be saved, and like that was bothering me. And I wasn't, with the sermons at the church, I wasn't getting fed. So I would literally be at work watching sermons all day, trying to learn, like just learning. But I'm like, then I started realizing that was going against what I was learning at church. And then I ran into a debate with James White and Michael Brown. And it was about healing. Mm-hmm. And I was a little biased because James White was a Calvinist, but I was like, his points are lining up with the Bible and understanding how we've been healed from sin. So just in case, like if there was an instance where I came to God and I had a disease or something happened, I wasn't healed from that shouldn't change my faith in God. I still know where I'm going. Mm-hmm. And someone seeing me go through like cancer or something and still keep my joy, still keep my peace, keep my happiness, that will bring more people to Christ. Where, with a Benny Hinn, I probably wasn't saved because I wasn't healed, because I didn't have that faith. It would say, you just don't have that faith. And it was a guy that I found, stumbled on. His name was Justin Peters. And he was someone that had a disability. But he went around, he was a pastor, he went around holding conferences, exposing these guys. So, I found his videos, and I'm just like, wow. Like, what he's saying is true. And, like, a big issue was speaking in tongues. Mm-hmm. Where people were getting up in my church. They used to come. I had my mom come to the church one time, and she's like, what's going on? What's going on here? And, like, that's bad when I'm coming home, and I'm like, your church is false. But she's seeing what's going on in mine, and it was just like, your church is false. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So then they were speaking in tongues, and then we had a group chat, and I'm like, this is not lining up with the Bible. Because the Bible says there has to be an interpreter there. So it's not just gibberish. And it's like one or two people go, one person goes, and someone's interpret. When you got the whole church going at once, and it just sounds like nonsense, that was like a big sign. And then, God just, like other preachers, just revealed the truth to me. And I was just like, I told my leadership about it. And it was like, yeah, they understood where I was coming from, but then they didn't nip it in the butt. They still let it happen. So I'm like, it was another example where you're just letting the things happen. And then I wrote down all my concerns because I wanted to leave, but I was like, let me try to fix it before I just up and leave. So, I approached the leadership with these changes, and then, he's like, oh, yeah, I understand, but make these changes, and then nothing happened. So, it was like, it was falling on deaf ears, and then the biggest thing, I became the problem because, I'm just getting annoyed. Because I'm like, what's going on? And the last thing that kind of, the straw that broke the camel's back was, it was a discussion about, Jesus was rich. Jesus was rich, and Jesus came to make us rich.
Wow.
Well, yeah, and the one that came a servant, that gave up everything to be a servant, to serve. He didn't come to be served; he came to serve. But and that was a topic, and it was just like, wow, like how you guys even seeing this from the scriptures? And one verse they took out of context was John 10:10, where it says, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." And they try to, that's one verse they try to twist and say, abundantly means prosperity. And it's like, no, I have life now because I have Jesus and I have God. So that was like a big wake-up call. And it was like, I'm glad I read my Bible, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have known this, So yeah, so I created this like big packet with everything that listed out why we disagreed with what was teaching, because I had watched some videos on why you should leave your church, and one of the reasons was they're preaching error and they're not rightly dividing the word. Yeah. So I wanted to give them an opportunity, and it was kind of like, yeah, we heard this before, and we're basically gonna keep doing what we're doing. And that was tough because that made me, when we left, because it was crazy, because at the time the pastor, he had gotten arrested for he molested someone. So it was like, I didn't know, God used that as a sign to say, hey, I don't know what's going on here. And that really hurt my reputation with my family. Because you're saying this church is good, and look at your pastor on the front page of the news for child molesting somebody. So all my credibility went out the window. They didn't want to hear what I had to say. So it was like, that was tough. And then all this stuff was going on, and I was just praying, like, God, like, reveal the truth, and I'm gonna go with it, So, and that was hard, because I seen everyone turn on me like I was a problem. So I gave them the packet, and like, we had a meeting, and it was like, we're just gonna leave. We're gonna separate. I wasn't a baptized member, so I was able to leave. But it was good because my wife, they was in this, and they didn't know. It was a good thing I got saved and was reading my Bible. Not that they wasn't reading their Bible, but they wasn't seeing it. They wasn't digging deep the way I was seeing it, So that was a blessing, but it showed me why people leave the church. And stuff like that, I could have just left God. I said, this is, this church is false. Like, I can't, I'm just going to go back to the world. And a lot of times that happens. But I couldn't deny what he did in my life.
Amen.
I couldn't deny the change that he made that I couldn't, I couldn't make on my own. And I seen what he did, so it was like, my love for God said, help me find a new church and everything. And you say you're faithful and you'll bring me through everything. This is going to be a tough patch, but I trust you. And I believe you. This is what I'm going to do, And I had to really love them, because I had like a lot of hatred in my heart toward them every time I seen them and stuff, because I'm like, I don't know if you guys are saved what you're doing in here, and you're trying to act like I'm wrong. And it was like, there was no love. Yeah. There was no love. And I had to forgive them, and it took a couple of months. I'm like, Lord, work on me, because I need forgiveness to help forgive. It's not always that easy, So just that, but I warned them, and there's nothing that I can do, So all I can do is pray for them. Hopefully God can send someone else their way, but I did my part. I didn't just leave and not tell anyone why I left. I try to say, hey, guys might want to question what you're listening to, you know. But it was a blessing, and it made me trust God more and build my faith more, knowing that, you know, if we seek the truth, we will find it. You know.
And so, how did that affect what you were looking for in a church? Because you said you were reading in the scriptures reading the scriptures, the main characteristics of a church, you know, there being that it's a body, the teaching is proper and correct, and that, you know, there's prayer and fellowship. How did that affect your search for a church in the future after leaving this one?
It's hard. It was hard because I didn't really know what to look for. And my wife had been going to the church I go to now when she was younger. Mm-hmm. So I said, "But why did you guys leave that church?" I wanted to know why. Mm-hmm. And they kind of went back into the world. So there was no real excuse for leaving. So it was good preaching. And I had texted my wife's sister and said, "Hey, like, I want to dig deeper into the Word." And she actually contacted that pastor and, like, tried to give me some advice and told me, you know, I need to be in a church with expository preaching and is really good preaching. And, you know, the old pastor didn't have no degree. He had just read the Bible. He, like, not everyone needs an education, but that definitely helps. And you definitely should have some type of education to where you really know how to study the Word. Mm-hmm. And he didn't have that. So, and growing up, I really didn't have a background. I knew what the kingdom holded, but I knew that was false. Mm-hmm. And, like, the music we would listen to, we would just play, like, worship music where it wasn't like hymns. So when I actually found Down City, it was like, we're doing hymns, and it was just a totally shock, and it was a totally change, but it all stemmed back to my love for God. Mm-hmm. And trying to understand what true worship is and what's displeasing and what's pleasing, you know? Mm-hmm. So it was hard, but I had to say, do I love God enough? I'll go through whatever.
All right. Well, thank you, Ryan, again. And so we'll be right back on Truth Prevails with our final segment.
Who is this that walks on water? Who is this that split the sea? The one they call the Holy Father, the one who sent his Son for me. They say he heals the broken hearted. They say he loves us all the same. He came to take us out of the darkness. Can someone please tell me his name? He's the great I am. He's the great I am.